Welcome to the video on defining what formative assessment is and how we will use these guiding principles to define our POW Science instruction work for selecting high-quality formative assessments, resources, and strategies to meet Montana's NGSS-aligned performance standards. In this video, we will discuss the assessment 5 focus points and what assessment literacy means for us, what formative assessment isn't, what effective formative assessment is in its process, what learning theory is supported by formative assessment, the instructional timing of our formal and informal assessments to support student learning, and lastly, when to shift the responsibility of the learning. Susan Brocart defines 11 competencies to guide the conceptions of formative assessment knowledge and skills alongside the knowledge and skills teachers need when working in our present accountability and standards-based reform systems. So what are these 11 competencies and why are they important for our work? Let's walk through them together and find out why. First, teachers should understand learning in the content area they teach. A good question that may guide this competency is, when is it developmentally appropriate to introduce this concept? Second, teachers should be able to articulate clear learning intentions that are congruent with both the content and depth of thinking implied by the standards and curriculum goals, in such a way that are attainable and accessible. We may think about this competency in two parts. One, alignment is very important, as we have already discussed, but two, clear learning intentions are fundamental to formative assessment and teaching. The third, teachers should have a repertoire of strategies for communicating to students about what achievement of learning looks like. This competency lends itself nicely to the work we are doing in POW instruction, that is, developing high-quality resources and strategies for our Montana Science Formative Repository that meets the instructional needs of our Montana NGSS-aligned performance standards. And 4, teachers should understand the purpose and uses of a range of available assessment options and be skilled in using them. This competency helps explain why assessment literacy is so crucial to all teachers. 5, teachers should have the skills to analyze classroom questions, test items, and performance assessment tasks to ascertain the specific knowledge and thinking skills required for students to do them. This point is important to answer the question, how do you know your students know? Being well-versed in what is alignment, what is measurable, and how to measure it, and what evidence you need to make a claim about student achievement is very critical to you as a teacher. And 6, teachers should have the skills to provide effective and useful feedback on student work. Formative assessment is all about feedback. This idea is central to our POW instructional work. And 7, teachers should be able to construct scoring schemes that quantify student performance on classroom assessments into useful information for decisions about students, classrooms, schools, and districts. These decisions should lead to improved student learning, growth, or development. 8, teachers should be able to administer external assessments and interpret their results for decisions about students, classrooms, schools, and districts. And 9, teachers should be able to articulate their interpretations of assessment results and their reasoning about educational decisions based on assessment results to the educational populations they serve. These 3 concepts really get at the making sense of the results and what to do with the information. It is important to remember that we should focus on multiple measures of student learning, not one measure. Thus, no one data point should ever guide our decisions about a student. And lastly, competencies 10 and 11. Teachers should be able to help students use assessment information to make sound educational decisions. And 11, teachers should understand and carry out their legal and ethical responsibilities in assessment as they conduct their work. These points get at the POW instructional goals, that is, providing teachers with support on what and how to teach the new Montana NGSS-aligned performance standards. We are providing teachers with aligned, accessible, and rich formative resources to use with their current curriculum and instruction to help guide students toward learning what is expected. So now that we have spent a little time articulating what good assessment looks like, we need to ensure that we also know what formative assessment is not. For a long time, formative assessment has been an elusive concept, where the term formative assessment conjures up images of quizzes and tests, while in reality, it's a process. used by teachers and students during instruction that provides feedback to adjust ongoing teaching and learning. The issue has been that formative assessment is a thing or a particular kind of measurement. It's not. It's a process. It needs to be used during instruction to understand where students are relative to the intended learning goals, and it needs to be used to gather data that can have immediate action to adapt teaching and learning and help students get to where they need to go. In other words, it's a process, which is a verb. It needs effective tools and strategies, nouns, to reach its promise. Before diving into effective formative assessment, let's briefly compare and contrast formative from the other two tiers of assessment. What is their primary purpose? Notice for formative assessment, it is used to adjust ongoing teaching and learning and is low stakes. How about what do they focus on? Notice the length of the goal. For formative assessment, it's short term. What kinds of items do they contain? Notice for formative assessment that is focused, embedded, and may not even appear to be test items. Who creates them? For formative, educators are the primary developers. How frequently are they administered? For formative, notice that the frequency is often as much as daily, whereas others are spaced out to match the purpose and focus.